Good afternoon. Hope everyone is doing great. Gonna give it a few seconds here to let some people hop on. When you jump on, throw it in the chat where you're from, say hello, and super excited about this training. Um, as real estate agents, we are conditioned to, a commission is a commission, and that's it. I get paid a 2.5% or 3% commission from the seller. Or now maybe even the buyer. Sorry, I'm not feeling great today, but we're going to power through this because the information is fantastic. But we are conditioned to, and tell me how the sound is, please. Like I'm using this mic here, so I'll make sure the sound is good. But we are conditioned as agents to just kind of, get commissions the traditional way. And today I want to just kind of challenge that thinking and show you some different, innovative, creative ways. Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it. And show you some different and creative ways on how we can essentially extract more capital out of these deals as commissions, than just a traditional, 2.5, 3%. And so today I just wanted to talk about assignments, which are the easiest ones to handle, and just kind of go from there. Double closings, a little bit more, a little trickier, and then novations, which is kind of new and not a lot of agents or even investors know how to execute this. And so, obviously, we're not getting into the weeds today and showing you, documents we use. That's for our internal team, but I'm going to, kind of cover exactly what it is, how we do it, and the additional capital that we create in doing creative deals like this. So we are going to use this cool little pen. Let's see how this works and do some drawings for you guys. So first, we're going to talk about assignments, right? So the easier one, assignments. And so how this works, as an agent, right? So I have to remember, obviously the teaching here is for agents. How do agents execute this, right? And so how we do this is, let's say that we have a motivated seller, right? So Mr. Seller, and he's motivated, and then we have one of our agents. Let's just say this is you. And what we're going to do is, we're talking to a seller. They have motivation. They need to get out. They need to get out of fast. Maybe they're a hoarder, or lots of repairs are needed, and it just doesn't make sense for a retail listing. A solution could potentially be an assignment contract, right? And so the example I'm going to give is one that I actually did off the MLS. Usually agents are super against assignment contracts, but if they understand what our intent is and how we operate, and understanding that we have a nice big pool of investors that are looking for these deals, sometimes they're more open to it. And so how this works is you have a seller, motivated seller, you have you, right? And then we're going to execute this contract, and it's going to be an assignable contract, right? And so this contract, let's just say, is $100,000. So we say, Mr. Seller, we're going to give you 100 grand. They're like, perfect. That's what I need out of it. We know it's worth a little bit more in its current state, but they're willing to take the discount to move it quick, right? And so we run our numbers, we do our scope, we do all of our analysis that we always do, and we deem that we could probably get this to an investor at. So let's say here's our investor, and they're willing to pay 125 for this deal. Let's say 115. Okay, so 115. So what we do is we then assign this contract to our investor for a $15,000 assignment fee. Okay, so the contract still states $100,000 purchase price. There's going to be a $15,000 assignment fee on there. And when investors use cash or hard money, assignment fees are their normal practice. Now, when you get into conventional lending, they might have a problem with it, and give you pushback on an assignment fee. But in terms of the investor climate, cash or hard money assignment fees are on there all day long. It's normal practice. So how this works is you contract with the seller, right? You assign this contract to the investor for a specified amount, and then they go to close. And at closing, the contract will say 100,000, but you'll see a line item of 15K. So let me show you what this really looks like. So we just closed one. Not that long ago. It was actually in December. And we had an agent who located this property was actually on market, which was shocking, right? There was a um, it was, it flooded. It was on market. It was sitting for a long time. They just wanted it moved. The agent went in with very clear intentions. We need an assignable contract. We have a pool of investors that will buy this. And a lot of times, listing agents, they don't know how to market things to investors. They just put it on the MLS and think that every investor is going to see it. Investors are busy. They don't have time when they're flipping houses. They don't have time to research Zillow every day, or they depend on realtor partners, or bird dogs or whoever, to bring them deals that they can close, right? So let me just show you. So this one closed right before Christmas, right? So our company, Investcore Holdings, contracted this with this seller. There's agents involved. We got there's a commission involved on the buyer side. So on our side, there's a commission involved. And I'm going to skip through this for confidentiality, and we got an assignment fee. Invest Core Holdings, they messed that up, of 16 grand. So there was a commission involved and a $16,000 assignment fee. How do we do that? So what we typically do is, I don't want to grab the wrong one here. So what we typically do is, on our website, we'll package the deal. We know what investors want to look at. We know what they're looking for. So we run the scope, we run the comps, we do everything that we need to do to package this deal up and push it out to our investor partners, right? And so here's the web page, beds, baths, links to pics and videos. We went and did extra pics and videos. Our estimated ARV, I think it appraised the hard money appraisal came in right around 350, so we're pretty close on that. We offered at 195. So we had this under contract at 179, right? So it was under contract at 179. We pushed it out to our investor partners at 195. This is our estimated rehab, our potential spread, our EMD. Then we give them comps. These are the comps that we're looking at. Here's a little pocket of comps, just to, we show our work at our brokerage. We show our work every single time. And so we also had the scope. We had the scope available to show the investor. And so we gave all that information. They wanted it. They pulled the trigger on it. Hard money loan, and closed. We had to do a couple extensions to get us to the finish line, but ended up closing. And so instead of just taking, as an agent, instead of just taking this property and saying, okay, hey, Mr. Investor, do you want to buy it? And I'm going to get a 2.5% commission. So at 179 times 0.25, whoops, 179 times 2.5%. So you're looking at, with a 2.5%, you're looking at $4,400. So we got a commission and an assignment fee on that, right? So understanding ways to create additional income opportunities on properties it's what we do, right? And it's what every agent should do. I think every agent should try to understand this stuff. So that is your typical assignment. Okay. Very simple. A lot of agents, if you're looking on MLS, they won't take assignment contracts. If they won't take assignment contracts, well, then we might look to double close them. And so that is the next step. So assignments, anybody have questions on assignments? Pretty simple, right? This is the simpler one out of the three. Everybody understand that? All right. Well, put something in the chat if you don't understand. So assignments are pretty easy. Now let's talk about the double close. And let me give you a scenario of why I had to double close. It's the first time I've used this whiteboard. Let's see how it goes. All right, so double close. Now, a couple years ago, I found a property. It was actually an attorney in my office. I was going through probate, and he came to me and he's like, "Hey, I know you guys do investing and yada yada. Are you interested in this property?" And I said, "Well, let me take a look at it." So I start looking at it. End up contracting on it, right? So a contract on it at, I don't remember what the original contract price was. I think it was 375. It's in Valrico. Contracted on it at 375. There was 21 heirs in this probate deal. It took 9 months to get this probate deal done. And so through that time, extension. I didn't have a commission built in at the beginning, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not extending again unless we do a commission. They said, that's fair. You've done a ton of work. So we added a 2.5%. I think it was 2.5% commission. It was $10,000 commission or something like that. And so I added the commission, and with 21 heirs and a probate attorney involved, you're not assigning that to somebody. right? And I almost took it down and flipped it myself, but I, for whatever reason, I didn't. I said, okay, well, let me blast this out to my list of investors. So I packaged it up. I packaged up this deal, blasted it out. I met one guy for one meeting, never met him before. He was on my list, cash buyer. He wanted it. And so how this works is we're going to say we have our seller, right? At this, for this deal was the probate attorney, really. It was the estate. So I wasn't really dealing direct to seller, but I knew the probate attorney. So that helps. And then you have you. And so this is called an A to B contract, right? So we do our contract. This one was at originally 375. We ended up getting it down to, I kept asking for, because the market was softening, so I got reductions. I ended up getting this down to 364 plus a 2.5% commission, which the commission wasn't built in. It's not 25% commission, right? And so I had 9 months. 9 months with this property is agonizing, right? But anyways, towards the end, I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna find a buyer for it. So what I did was I took this is called an A to B, B to C. So this is me or you. Let's say it's you. And then here's my end seller. Man, my drawings are getting worse. Here's my end buyer. So here's my investor. And so we did a contract for 381 net to seller. So that means that he was paying all of my closing costs. So the difference between this, which was what is that, 16 grand. So it was net to seller. I ended up throwing in like $700 of closing costs because he was freaking out that he was paying all the closing costs, even though he agreed to it. And so at the end of the day, both of these contracts closed. And there's a couple ways to go about this. One, if you have an investor-friendly title company that will do pass-through funding. So this buyer had this money cash. We had 2 contracts. So some title companies will make you fund this one and fund this one. We have a company actually in our office called doubleclose.com. Shout out to Danny. You probably hear me. But they will do transactional funding to fund this deal for 1%. So if I had to fund this at 364, he would have funded it. It would have cost me $3,600, which eats into my profit, which I don't love. And but I could have done the deal that way. They do transactional funding. They fund it. It's pretty much funding for one day. They close out both contracts. However, I was using closed title, Mr. Walter. And I will say, I'm going to give out a shout to Adrian Prince, if you're listening. Love her. I saw her the other day. She said she has PTSD from this deal because there's 21 errors. So the attorney had it at a different title company. They couldn't get it done. It was a nightmare. They couldn't get it done. I said, hey, let's pull this over to closed title, my preferred title company that I know can get this done, and let's see what happens. We pulled it over. I think we closed within 2 weeks. Like Adrian killed it, closed title, and they allow pass-through funding. So this buyer brought in his cash and it funded both contracts, and I didn't have to eat this fee. Okay. So at the end of the day, I made a $16,000 double close fee. Now, granted, I had closing costs over here. So I paid closing costs. So it probably wasn't all 16,000, but I had closing costs. And when you double close contracts, you have capital gains, unfortunately. Right. So it cost me more in taxes. But I had 16K, let's just say double close commission, and then I made a $10,000 commission or something like that. I can't remember what it was. It was around 27,000 total. So that is a way to do a deal. And here, let me show you. So I'm not lying. Let's show proof. Okay, so this is the property, 2609 Dewberry Street. And if you look down here, I bought it at 364. This is in 2020. Oh my gosh, it's over 2 years ago. So James Earn Associates bought it from the estate, and then 381 on the back end. This is the same day. I'm not sure. It looks like it was recorded well after, which is weird because it didn't. It's recorded or closed on the same day. Excuse me. And so James Earn Associates to Happy Day Tampa LLC. The guy was awesome. Loved him. Hope to do a deal with him again. And so that's how we do a double closing. And you have multiple ways of doing it with pass-through funding or doubleclose.com transactional funding. But this is a way to get 2 contracts closed simultaneously. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of times agents won't take assignable contracts. So a lot of times you have to do this. This is the only way to do it if you're dealing with an agent that refuses to take an assignable contract, which is unfortunate because they cost you more in closing costs, etc. and sometimes you have to do, transactional funding. But any questions on that? Double closing deals. I feel like I ran through it pretty quick. All right, let's move on. Now let's get into the fun one, the novation. So this is a newer way to do deals. Um, and the point of this video is to help agents or whoever understand that there's more meat on the bone on these deals than just, a listing, right? So I'm going to give you an example. This is a deal that we just closed not that long ago, and I'm going to be I'll be the listing agent in this deal. So we had a seller. It was a condo, and I had an investor who contracted with the seller. Okay, so this is a contract. The contract was at 65K. Now, on top of this contract, we had a limited power of attorney, or he had a limited power of attorney, and he had uh, I'm sorry, limited power of attorney, which gives us the right just to literally sign listing documents, to put it in the MLS, all that stuff. So limited power of attorney, and then a novation agreement. Okay, so these are extra documents. And really what the investor is saying here to the seller is, I'm going to market your property for sale, but I'm going to do a white glove, pretty much a concierge. I'm going to take care of everything. You don't have to worry about it. It was vacant. I'm going to handle the showings. I'm going to handle negotiations, etc. And I promise that you're going to get, at the end of the day, $65,000 net to seller. You're going to walk with 65K. Okay. Now, what this investor does is he contacts a listing agent. He says, hey, I have limited power of attorney to list this property. Here's all my documents. Here's how I'm legal. List this property for me. So we do our listing agreement, all the disclosures, everything that has to be done for a listing. This property goes into the MLS. Now, I'm not going to bore you with all the details of the transaction, but it ended up being that this end buyer, which was somebody, they wanted to live in it, right? So when you go to the MLS, novations are really, let me back up a little bit. Why would we use novations? So novations are really, you have a wholesale deal, right? An assignment where the numbers have to make so much sense that you can assign it and the investor can flip it, and there's profit involved there, right? So that's assignment. Double close, same thing, like you're wholesaling property. A novation is when you talk to a seller, and let's say that the fair market value is 125, they're willing to take 100, but you know that your assignment offer, your cash offer, your offer that that you can push out to investors is 75. So you're $25,000 off. So they want more than what a wholesale deal would be, but less than fair market value. It's great for novation. That's when we're trying to execute novations. Okay, so listing agreement gets listed on the MLS, and then this end buyer comes along and says, perfect, I'm gonna pay you $85,000. Now we have a $20,000 spread. Oh, losing my pen. $20,000 spread there. So this is how this deal worked. This is net to seller, 65, right? So we had $20,000. Out of this $20,000, the investor paid the buyer's agent commission, 2.5%, right? I think it was 2.5%. It was 3%. Actually, it was 3% because it was only 85K. So paid them 3%, and then also paid all of these closing costs. The estoppel fee, the settlement fees, it was paid off. There was no lien on it. Paid off, pretty much the taxes, proration tax. Usually when you're doing this, when you're going net to seller, it's less taxes, less tax prorations, less doc stamps, like they pay their own taxes. But in this deal, the investor was covering all of it for the seller. So out of 20 grand, he ended up with 13 and change, 13K. His deal with me was we would go 50-50 on executing the novation for this commission. So we both made, I think it was like $6,700 or something like that. Now, as a listing agent, working with creative investors that know what they're doing, and obviously I know how to execute it myself, but working this deal this way changed from getting on an $85,000 contract times 3%. This buyer's agent got 2550. My commission was 6,700 roughly. So I increased my value by over $4,000 executing this novation in terms of a commission. So understanding how creative ways work can change the game as an agent and an investor. Really, most investors don't know how to execute novations, and there's a lot more that goes into this innovations. Like there's certain people who have to sign documents, certain people who have to sign certain documents through the transaction. It's not it's not just you have to make sure that everything's disclosed. There's a lot that goes into it, but it's so rewarding that it doesn't make sense not to know how to do it. And so again, this is what we teach at InvestCore Realty. Obviously, a little shameless plug for our brokerage. We have all the documents, we've executed these, and so that is really all I have in terms of what assignment is, what a double close is, what a novation is. Novation's a little who's the investor and who was the investor and who was the listing agent in this deal. So I'm the listing agent, and I will tell you the investor offline, Mr. Alex. So this deal worked out really well. Worked out really well. And actually, I'll be honest, we listed this thing. There was condos listed at 130K. We listed it at 110, and we thought it was a slam dunk. We're like, oh my gosh, there's such a big spread here, blah 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 blah, and it didn't move. Like no showings, nothing. We ended up dropping it to 85 just to get it gone, and ended up moving it pretty quick after that. But that's about it. Any questions on novation? So really, you know what? Let me finish with this. Let me finish with this and kind of tie it together. So a novation deal is almost like a double close. So a novation is almost like a double close inside of one transaction because you're having your A to B. So this is I'm not going to draw them. Seller to investor. Your investor then B to C, investor to end buyer, and then you have a novation agreement along with all the other paperwork. But then you have a novation agreement that essentially replaces this party to this party, and you make that novation fee. So if that makes more sense, hopefully that does, because doing a novation, you skip double closing costs. You're not closing twice. This agreement just changes parties, right? That's what the authorization is. All it does is change the parties in the transaction for a fee. And so, yeah, perfect. So that's about it. Assignments, double close, novations, three of many, honestly, creative ways to transact real estate instead of just traditional real. And I say this all the time. Like, why would you only work with a retail client that buys a house every 5 to 7 years when you work with investors that buy 5 to 10 a month? It just doesn't make sense to me. And increasing your skill set, understanding how creative deals work and how to extract essentially more capital out of these deals instead of just a 2.5% commission, if it's possible. Obviously, it's not always possible, but when it's possible, if there's opportunity there, understanding what to do and how to do it makes the difference and makes the difference in your bottom line. So hope you enjoyed it, guys. Thanks for hanging out, and talk to you later. I'm gonna go home and take some Dayquil or NyQuil, maybe go to bed. Have a great day.